Hey students, I'm at Photopea.com. This is basically lesson 2B, just an extension of where we were yesterday, just a brief little lesson about one tool. So I'm going to open applecheetahbooks.psd, and this is where we are right now. If I turn off all my layers, we have a white background layer. I've got my Apple Books layer. We've already stretched it and filled the space. And then we duplicated that layer and we used the clone stamp tool to eliminate the background. And what this mini lesson is, this task that you need to accomplish right now is I'm going to make this invisible and go to my Apple Books layer. And I want to make the apple itself separate onto a new layer. And there's a number of ways to do that. Just so you know, anything you ever select on a layer, such as this, if I copy it or hit Command C and then I paste it, what that automatically does every time is, if you look at my layers palette, it pasted it as a new independent layer. So that's just a side note, because sometimes that would be the most useful way to do this, is carefully selecting what you want and then you copy and paste it into a new layer. But we're going to use a tool called under Select. So you're going to go to the Select menu, and it's called Magic Cut. And Magic Cut, I think, is a really cool Photopea function. I have not seen it in Photoshop. It might be there, but I haven't seen it lately. So here's what it looks like. On the left, we have the picture, and on the right, we have a preview of what, if I hit OK, what would give me a new layer. And you need to do this and get just the apple. So the way you do that is, we have on the upper left, we have green, gray, and red. So first of all, green represents anything that you want to have, and I don't want anything but the apple. So I can just go around, and you don't have to be neat about it. You can also use your command, you can also scroll in and use Command plus and Command minus to scroll in. If you're scrolled in, you need to move it around. Hold the space bar down, and that lets you travel around. Okay, so the bracket keys will also make this brush size larger and smaller as needed. I'll just go real big here because it's easy to hit it all up. I'm going to get rid of all this green in the books. I don't want anything green except what's in the apple. Now let's see how it affects our preview over there. So for some reason, it's still showing the book. So I'm going to now switch to red. Red is how you indicate what you definitely don't want. So if I just sort of generally go over these books over here, a little bit into the gray over here, I'm saying, hey, I don't want this. So let's see what happens now. Oh, look at that. Now there's this little tiny little bit right there, so I'm going to just paint over that. The one thing you can't do is you can't paint red over the green, and you can't paint green over the red. If it's in between, you got to use gray. Okay, so it's isolated pretty well, except I don't know what that little bit is there. Let me get a little bit more. So you just have to customize it. There we go. And I do want the stem. So what I'll do is I'll zoom in on this. Whoops, gotta use spacebar to move it around. If you try to use the two fingers and scroll around while you're in Magic Cut, it doesn't work. It just makes you zoom in. So now I'll use my bracket keys and I'll make my brush way small. I'm gonna go to my green. I'm just gonna say, hey, I want that stem, and let's see what happens. Do I get the stem? Yes, I got the stem, but the problem is I got extra gray stuff. So I'm going to go to red and say, nope, I don't want this gray stuff around it. Just kind of roughly drop that in there. And it looks like I need to get in a little bit closer. Now, worst case scenario, we just take this, and then when we get it as a layer, we can always just, oh, went too far. I wonder if I can hit Command Z and undo. There we go. Okay, so if I zoom in real close and shrink my brush down, oh, that's too far. I know I just hit the apple right there. I don't want to actually hit the apple. Let's see what happened. Oh, that didn't really hurt it too much. And then there's this little bit right here I'm going to get rid of. Good, so you can see how it is getting a little bit more defined. Okay, now if you look closely on the right, you can see I'm kind of pixelized. So right here where it says border, mine is set to 0. But if you change this, you can just type in a number like this is number of pixels. So if I change it to 3, and let's see what happens. See how it fuzzed it a little bit? And I think that's appropriate. That doesn't look too choppy and it doesn't look too faded. So now that I have my apple selected, I can come up here and it's right here. This is set to new layer. So if I was trying to do a perfect selection, which we will talk about later, I could choose selection. I actually do want a new layer. So now I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see I have this layer, Apple. It's also called Apple Books. I'm just going to change the name of it to Apple. Now if I go to my Move tool, I could move it around. But now if I turn on my background and I put the Apple layer above the background layer, now the apple is right back where it should be, but it is independent of the books layer. So remember, we started with this layer where it's all kind of one picture. We duplicated it, got rid of the apple, and then we went back to the Apple Books layer and did the magic cut off of it in order to get the apple independently. Okay, and if you're trying to line them up, well, they are lined up, so that's good. Yeah, just my background's a little weird, different, but no one would ever notice that. Okay, so now I want to hit File and Save, or save as PSD, whatever you need to do. This concludes today's lesson, and I'll talk to you later.